is that I, came to the conclusion, Alex, that the obesity problem, first and foremost, is environmentally driven. Because up until sort of 1970, 1980, there was almost no obesity in the Western world. And suddenly it started to increase. So question, what happened in the environment to trigger that increase in obesity? Did we all suddenly become irresponsible? Did we all suddenly become lazy? Did we all suddenly become gluttons? No, it's what I have determined, I think most people in the nutritional research area know now, is that the obesity epidemic is primarily driven by eating foods that encourage overconsumption. So those foods really are the ones that don't give you good nutrition, so you don't feel full, keep you hungry. To some degree now, I think there's research emerging that some of these foods are addictive, especially the sugary foods and the starchy foods. And that really is the essence of what has driven the obesity epidemic. So I think when it comes to the individual, and something you've obviously experienced and your mum has as well, it's focusing on eating nutritious food first and foremost, ideally home-cooked, minimally processed foods, cutting out the snacks. And actually, if you do that, then your body gets the nutrients it needs and your appetite gets controlled and you're not fighting hunger. I mean, I also had to experience this myself because I was the guy, in my late teens, early 20s, was consuming a lot of sugar, 40 teaspoons of sugar a day I calculated in different foods. And I was always hungry and I thought that was normal. I'd have my breakfast in the morning, probably Weetabix with, 3 teaspoons of sugar. I'm starving by sort of 10:30 and then I'm off to whatever, have a hot chocolate or whatever else and a snack, a packet of crisps. And then I'm hungry again at lunchtime. And this was something that I got used to. And when I cut out the ultra-processed foods and the sugary stuff, I found that actually I wasn't hungry anymore and I was able to control my appetite. So really, that's really the essence of what we should be thinking about when it comes to obesity on an individual level. Eat real food. Now, the problem we've got in this country, Alex, and many Western countries now, is that ultra-processed food has become the dominant, food product that we consume. What does that mean? It's usually foods that are high in starch, unhealthy oils, sugar, packaged foods, additives and preservatives, usually 5 or more ingredients. That's 50% of the diet of the average diet of the Brit is these sorts of foods now. So what do we do to combat it? Well, we educate people. Of course, we need to educate them. But I think what people need to understand is most of our food choices are kind of automatic. They're made without full conscious awareness. We all know when if you go past a bakery and you smell, I don't know, freshly baked bread or, say, donuts, it will trigger something that is going to make us more likely to eat those foods. And actually, the food environment is so saturated with these ultra-processed foods, it becomes difficult to avoid. I draw comparisons with tobacco. If you go back to, think about it now, go back to 1960, 1970, 50% of adults were smoking. Now, that sounds shocking now, doesn't it? 50% of adults. How do we curb tobacco consumption? It was focusing on the availability, the affordability, and the acceptability of cigarettes. So public health education campaigns for the acceptability, affordability, taxing, raising the price, had a big drop in consumption when we raised the price of cigarettes. And then the availability, so public smoking bans, for example, banning tobacco advertising, sports associations with tobacco. That was commonplace when I was growing up. So if we apply the same principles to ultra-processed food on a population level, will have a huge impact, and then it becomes easier to exercise personal responsibility. But for now, it's very difficult for most people to exercise personal responsibility because they often lack the knowledge. The choice is, sometimes often very limited in terms of what they can eat. Hospital food, 75% of the food purchased in hospitals is essentially junk food. It's crazy, isn't it? And you've got 50% of NHS employees. These are people who you would think are very disciplined. Doctors, we are generally very disciplined. To go through medical school and do the kind of work we do, you have to be very disciplined. So it can't be personal responsibility. 50% of NHS doctors are overweight or obese as well. It's an environmental problem.